he said the following: Mr. President, let me show you the satellite proof of what I say. He reached down and picked up a valise to show the President of France, and de Gaulle put his hand up, allegedly, because obviously I wasn't there. He put his hand up and he said, quote, "No, Mr. Secretary, I know President Kennedy, and he'd never mislead me on a matter of war." The single most urgent responsibility I'll have as your president, and allegedly someone who knows something about foreign policy, is to begin to work to reestablish as my goal that by the time my first term is over, there would be world leaders who would say, "No, Mr. Secretary, I know President Biden would never mislead me on the matter of war and peace." Can you think of one leader in the world, one, who would say that to the President Secretary of State today?
I have one last question, and I'll open it up to the audience. How would you select your Supreme Court nominees?
I would select the Supreme Court nominees the way I have presided according to the Senate historian over more Supreme Court nominations than anyone, including Strom Thurmond or Ted Kennedy. I was chairman or ranking member of that committee for 17 years. I'm the one who led the fight, as you recall, for the defeat of Bork. And imagine if Bork had been in the court during this period instead of being that. Not a joke, think about it. Your whole life would be different, by the way. It would be fundamentally different than it is right now. You remember I got in a lot of trouble for being very tough on Roberts and Alito. Remember what a great guy Roberts was? Yeah. Do any of you doubt what I said then? Do any of you doubt when I said he will turn the court upside down, that civil rights will be put in jeopardy, that civil liberties, environmental laws will be put on the griddle? Watch. Here's what I do. I don't apply witness test when I make those judgments. I go back and I read everything they have written and what they have done. And if I'm not convinced they understand the modern reading of the Constitution, which says there are unenumerated rights in the Constitution, that the 14th Amendment Liberty Clause means there is a right to privacy, that the 9th and 10th Amendment do not mean the supremacy of the states. And so, I'm a constitutional law professor. I've been teaching an advanced course in constitutional law at Wharton University for the last 15 years. I actually do the test, I mark the papers, I do it all on a Saturday morning. It is something that all joke. If you want to learn a subject, teach it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would make sure that there was a modern, expansive view of individual rights and individual liberties that is reflected in the writings and the attitudes of the people I would put on the court. If that were the case, we will be just fine. But if it's not, you're going to find that the next President of the United States has two critical functions with no margin for error. One, the next president will have to immediately end the war in Iraq and turn to other hotspots in the world before they become a war. And that president better know more than their advisors. And secondly, he's going to have to make at least one, probably three, critical choices for the Supreme Court, which will affect the lives of you young people more than anything other than war or peace will for the entirety of your lives. I think I'm the best equipped person to do both of those things right out of the box.
You have a microphone?
I'm in.
You're it. Well, just in case I brought it also in writing. I've been wanting to speak, as you know, ever since this started. I'm going to quote, "What we bind on earth is bound in heaven, and what we loose on earth is loosed in heaven." Now, an interpretation of that would be, he that does good does it to himself, and he that does evil does it to himself. Now, would you choose from which two sources these quotes are from? One is the Bible, the other is the Quran. What happened to what we bind on earth? A group back in the 4th century AD said it only belonged to a select few. I tell you, it belonged to Adam and Eve in the beginning.
What's your question for time?
What's the question?
What'd you say?
What's the question?
America is in the same throes that Jerusalem was when Jesus stood on the hill and went. Eternal peace is within your reach.
What's the question for the candidate?
The question doesn't matter without the background.
No, I need.
Sit down.
You have a spiritual problem, do you want to solve it spiritually or not?
Thank you. All right, yes, sir.
Six questions here, Senator. We're going to combine two of them in one. If I may, what would be your first step in getting the Palestine-Israel question to the Middle East? And the second related to that, in a way, is the fact that President Bush, President Putin were asked differences on that Eastern European missile shield. Who's right there?
Two questions. One, what would be my first act as president? I'm going to do these real quick. They're essay questions. But I'm going to do it real quick. If you want me to follow up, I will, okay? But you could do a whole seminar on both those questions. And they're very good ones. What would be the first act I would do to deal with the Israeli-Palestinian situation? The first thing I would do is I would send the Secretary of State upon my election directly to meet with the Israeli government, make it clear that I want a consensus, that I believe this is an opportunity to begin direct negotiations with the Syrians, to be able to deal with the Golan. If you did that, you'd be able to deal with the Syrians who are accommodating Hamas and Hezbollah, which is allowing the chaos to continue in the West Bank and in Lebanon. I think there's a deal to be made there, because for the first time in 50 years, that old expression, the enemy of my enemy is my enemy, for the first time, the Israelis and the Sunni Arab states have something in common. Their overwhelming concern and fear of jihadis coming out of a new assertion on the part of radical Shia states led by Iran. So what you do again in terms of diplomacy, I don't expect you to settle every difference you have between each other, but I know I can put together the thing that binds you together. And the thing that binds you together is a need now for there to be stability with a two-state solution on the West Bank and Gaza. And you see, I believe all the pieces are there to put it together. So I begin that negotiation, number one. And by the way, parenthetically, this administration prevented Sharon, and prevented the Ulmah government from opening discussions with Bashar Assad in Syria. They wanted to begin these discussions. This administration said no. Gigantic mistake. This administration has been a disaster to the Middle East. The second question was the missile shield. We went about this the wrong way. It is premature for us to be putting up a defense missile shield in Europe now. It does not make Putin right, but it does say there's a right way to do that. The idea of us moving Iran along as this boogeyman that's about to take us all over and blow us all out of the water is bizarre. Let me give you one little fact you might find interesting. They ain't good guys, they ain't bad guys. Iran has real potential to do real havoc. They are not doing positive things. They are sponsoring Hezbollah. They are sponsoring Hamas. They are a destabilizing force right now. But they're also in a pretty weak position. The fact of the matter is there's an overwhelming disagreement within Iran between the clerics, who are the folks who run the theocracy, the elected guy, Ahmadinejad, who is part of the Revolutionary Guard, and the Iranian people. There are three different places. The state that we're the most popular in, from the Mediterranean to the Himalayas, is where? Are Israel and then Iran.
Yeah.
Why Iran? They don't like their government. They don't like their government. So what do? You look at the reality. Iran now imports over 40% of all their refined oil. They're vulnerable. Our own agency says that by the year 2015, they will be a net importer of crude oil. Hear me? Why? Because they are squandering and not husbanding their vast reserves. We have leverage, significant leverage. The second thing is, put this one thing in point